Church here, and welcome to the Game Grinder, and today we're doing another pickup video, and it's actually been a little while since my last pickup video, which was about 2 months ago, so I've accumulated a few things. Actually, a lot of this was like shortly after my last pickup video, but nonetheless, I got a few things, decided, of course, I would like to talk about them, so we will just jump right into it because it's a few things to go through. So first here we're going to go through some, I guess, friend deals, friend trades kind of thing. So first off then is going to be Little Samson, and this is actually a reproduction. So funny story there, a while back as a gift, a friend gave me a cartridge of WWF Steel Cage Match for the NES, and I had thought, he said, all I needed to do was to get somebody to make the repro, and what that means is the Steel Cage game for the NES is actually, the board that it has works for the Little Samson ROM, because you need specific ROMs for certain games on the NES. So I had that and just never got around to trying to find somebody to put the ROM on that cart for me. And not too long ago we were hanging out and we were talking about some things, and the Little Samson came up and he asked me if I had checked it out, and I was like, well, no, because I hadn't got the game put on the cart. And he's like, no, you misunderstood me. He's like, if you wanted a different label, you'd have to get one, but I already had the game with the ROM put on there. So I was sitting on a reproduction of Little Samson for quite a while, and decided to put a different label on there, and this one does actually say reproduction on it, so nobody freak out. And the board is obviously not the same as Little Samson. So yeah, got a Little Samson repro. Pretty sweet game. So the next couple games here is a trade that I did with my friend Jason, Corpse Flood Gaming. He had come across a pretty epic Sega Master System lot, and there was a couple games that he had doubles of, and I was like, yep, let's make a trade. So I got a couple cool games. He didn't make out so well as far as I'm concerned. It was stuff that I didn't want, but pretty happy with what he got, so I think we're all good. So the first game here is Enduro Racer, and this is a motorcycle driving game, course, stunt course, kind of go in a straight line, jumps, whatever. Not much to say about it. And then we got Wonder Boy, which is a pretty cool game. Actually, I had played this way back when. I was able to rent it at a rental store, so oddly enough I didn't have this in my collection, and I'm still missing pretty much all the other Wonder Boy games. And I do have Wonder Boy in Monster World, but I don't have any of the other games, none of the other Monster World games. Dragon's Trap I am trying to find for a really good price, and it's just not happening, so who knows. It's kind of surprising, some of the other games that I'm missing for Master System that you'd think would be kind of essential for a collector. Of course, I don't have the expensive ones like Phantasy Star, but other games like Alex Kidd, I don't have any of the Alex Kidd games for some reason. So the next thing here is a PlayStation 2 Underground demo disc, and this is Volume 2, and I got this from Bossom Burf. So thank you very much for the demo disc. He picked this up thinking he didn't have it, and he actually did, and he said that if anybody was interested to let him know. I told him I was interested. I collect demo discs, of course, and he was kind enough to send this to me, so excellent, have another demo disc. So this next stack of games was a pretty cool deal. So I have a friend that's actually collecting a complete Wii collection, and I had a sealed copy of Muramasa, which was a game that I had planned on opening eventually to play. I just hadn't got around to it, not really collecting sealed games per se. And I'd mentioned that, and he was like, hey, if you're just gonna open it, he's like, why don't we do a trade? I have a open copy that I'd trade you for. Maybe we could figure out something else. So I traded him my sealed Muramasa, got his open copy of Muramasa, and gave him a few bucks, and also got A Boy and His Blob. And cool game, cool remake of the NES game that I've actually never had the chance to play. It was a game that was in one of those like Nintendo cheat code books that you used to be able to get in Scholastic through school when we were kids, you know, back in the 80s and early 90s and whatnot. And this was one of the games that was featured in there. I don't remember if there's codes or whatnot, but I always thought it looked really cool. Always wanted to play it, just never had the opportunity. I really don't ever see this game in the wild, or at least I don't think I ever did. And the neat thing about this remake is it was actually done by WayForward, and I've decided at this point that I'm kind of going to do a WayForward collection, not maybe a complete, like every game WayForward put out, but they actually put out quite a few good games, even though a lot of them are licensed or remasters or things like that. But yeah, Boy and His Blob, very cool. appreciated the trade. And actually, the same night that I went to hang out with him and some friends and do the trade, he had a stack of PC games, and he's like, "Here you go, you can have these." He's like, I got nothing to do with them, so have at them. And I graciously accepted. And then I also got another PlayStation Underground sampler disc CD 8. So yeah, demo discs all around. And the PC games, a few of these I already had. A few of these are really cool. Really excited to add to my collection, even though I don't know if I have the means to play them. You know, some of these older games, unless you use like things like DOSBox, but I don't have like flight sticks or whatnot. And that's relevant because the next game is Star Wars TIE Fighter, which is one of the first PC games I actually had the opportunity to play. I played a few games like back in the day, you know, some school games like things like Number Munchers and Oregon Trail and whatnot, but actual like full-on PC games, Risk was an early one. I know like the Amazing Machine, or I can't exactly remember the name of the game at this moment off the top of my head, but TIE Fighter and X-Wing were two other PC games. I've talked about it before. I have a friend, or had a friend when I was younger, and I used to take my Super Nintendo over to his place and then eventually my PlayStation, and he would play those and I'd play his PC games, and it was a really cool way that we could hang out and enjoy the mediums that we didn't have access to. But yeah, TIE Fighter, really cool flight sim, cool story, a lot of fun, considerably technical games, but yeah, so that's sweet. And then I also got Star Wars Yoda Stories, which I am not familiar with this one and haven't looked it up, but who knows, could be a good one. There is some Star Wars PC game that I played. I don't think it's that one, but I have no idea what the game was. I think it was like a top-down kind of like little character controlling on the screen, not like an RPG necessarily, but kind of in that isometric style. So then the next game here is Schism, and this is kind of like Myst or Riven, if you're familiar with those, kind of the old school kind of first-person puzzle games, adventure puzzle games. Don't know much about this one, but you know, I'm sure it's pretty decent. So then I got 2 copies of Warcraft 3 Reign of Chaos. I got another copy of Dragon's Lair. This is on CD-ROM. And then another copy of Dragon's Lair. Can never have enough Don Bluth in your collection. We've got Diablo, classic, must have. This one I was most stoked about because I more recently got the original version, but I got Duke Nukem 3D Atomic Edition, which is the improved Duke Nukem 3D, and you know, you gotta have the Duke. Gotta love the Duke. Never really played these games, but whatever. Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six. And I believe this is OG Rainbow Six. We got a copy of StarCraft. And we got another copy of Tom Clancy Rainbow Six 3 Raven Shield. So yes, always good to add some PC love to the collection. Pretty stoked about a few of those, and you know, wins all around. Alright, the next little stack here is actually from the last Minnesota Retro Gamer Society meetup. That is the Facebook group. I've talked about them many times in the past. We always do kind of meetups, like buy, sell, trade events, and just hanging out and having a good time. You know, pretty much everybody in the group's friends, and it's always a great time. Always get some awesome pickups, and I got a bunch of very random stuff. So let's just get to it. So first one here, I'm pretty stoked to have finally picked up. Only played the demo, never actually had the chance to play the game, and that is Mega Man Legends, which is the third-person Mega Man RPG, basically. And like I said, unfortunately, I've just never had the chance to play this, but I have it now, so awesome. Next one here is just a random game that I got from a friend, a random PC game, Return to Krondor, which know nothing about it, but I was like, whatever, it was $1 or something, I think, so hey, who knows. Then we picked up Terminator 2, LJN Classic on the NES. Now I know LJN has a really bad rap. This game is not a beloved game by any means, but it is a game that I actually really enjoy. You know, at the height of, you know, Terminator 2, you know, out in theaters, and you know, one of the best movies ever made, and they put this on an NES cart. Of course I had to play it, and yeah, really dig Terminator 2 on the NES. So this next one was more novelty, less of a game that like you know, most of the games I add to my collection are games that I intend to play. Quality over quantity collection, even though there's a little bit of a quantity here. But there's a few odd ones and bad games on purpose added to my collection, and this is kind of one of them. And it is for the GameCube, and that is BMX XXX, which is basically, think Tony Hawk, but BMX bikes doing tricks and whatnot, but it's a lot of chicks in bikinis, and, it's kind of infamous. I believe there was some like jiggle physics and things like that. I'm not 100% on that, I don't remember, but got a game for the future episode of another Bad Game Beatdown with Corpse Blood Gaming. And this was for funsies, and that is Half-Life for PlayStation 2. Of course, I have the PC original. Fantastic game, kind of changed the face of first-person games as far as I'm concerned, and got a good deal, so yeah. And then a friend was selling a bunch of his Wii U stuff, so even though I don't have a Wii U at this time, I am trying to start to acquire some of the games if I can find them for really good deals, and I thought these were pretty good deals, and games that I definitely want to play eventually when I can get my hands on a Wii U. Right now the prices seem like they're going crazy, so I'm hoping that things go down a little bit and I can finally pick up a Wii U, because there are some games I would really like to play, and of course I could get Breath of the Wild on the Wii U, which would be great and fine by me. So first game here is Zombie U, which is a zombie game for the Wii U. Don't know a ton about it. It's a first-person zombie game. I think you die and you go to another character, so on and so forth. Heard pretty much mostly good things about it from people that I value their opinions, so I decided to grab that. And the next game here is Xenoblade Chronicles X. Don't have the one for the Wii, but yeah, pretty good deal, so decided to pick this one up as well. Then if you recall in my MGC pickup video, picked up a Star Trek game, just kind of for funsies, as a joke. It was a complete in-box Star Trek game for the PC, and since then I've decided to kind of, if I get a good deal, pick up some Star Trek games. There are some cool ones here, and it might be something that my fiance might be interested in, so that's a big win. So the first game here is Star Trek Voyager Elite Force, and it's kind of a first-person shooter-ish Star Trek game, maybe third-person. Haven't heard great things about this one, but whatever. But this one, Star Trek Conquest, I hear is pretty dang awesome, so yeah. Then the rest of these things are kind of just random oddities, just kind of neat things to add to the collection in some way or form. So I picked up one of the Worlds of Power books on Blaster Master, and these are basically kind of like officially licensed Nintendo fan fictions. They did a few other books as well, so I decided to grab that. And it's a silly read, but it's fun. This was actually a hookup from a friend. He told me I could just have it because this game is pretty much panned and not really worth anything. I had just gotten a loose copy of this game through a garage sale, so it was kind of neat to have the complete version, and that is Link's crossbow training for the Wii. And this is just kind of a gimmicky motion control shooting crossbow, but it's Link, whatever. Now this stuff I thought was really cool, really excited actually, things I used to have back in the day. So I've talked about it before. The first RPG that I ever played was Dragon Warrior. It was actually acquired through a trade with a friend at school back when I was like, 8, 9 years old, 10 years old or so. I believe he had gotten his copy through Nintendo Power like a lot of people. I don't remember exactly what I traded him for it, but I'd basically gotten most of a complete copy of Dragon Warrior, played through that, had the manual and everything, which is something that's really handy to use, especially as your first time playing an RPG before the days of the internet when you can't look up information, because a lot of those early RPGs were pretty dang obscure, and the manual actually had a guide included. A friend and an employee at the game shop that was hosting Games & Go in Roseville, Minnesota, she had some manuals and kind of little posters and things like that, just loose, that she was getting rid of. So I managed to pick up pretty much all the contents of Dragon Warrior. Now I pretty much just need the box, but I got the little adventure card that basically talks about the spells and whatnot. Then there is the map with the bestiary on it, and dungeon guide, whatnot. And then the other part of that, which is just the manual cover, which I'm just not going to unfold it, with the maps of the dungeons. And then of course the Explorer's Handbook, which is the manual with the guide included, which was something that I really missed. I don't remember what happened. I just lost them some years ago, so it's really neat to get all those back. Oh, and then another purchase from my friend was the Star Fox promo VHS that was sent through Nintendo Power, which I think are kind of neat little odds and ends from back in the day. Then with that, as some of you might know, that I am kind of recollecting a lot of the old video game movies and expanding on some of the other mediums of video game stuff just to add some extra flair to the collection, as it were. This one I thought I couldn't really pass this up. Based on a video game, definitely not a good cartoon show by any means, but it is a show that I happened to watch when I was a kid, pretty much because, you know, back then we didn't have cable. There was like 5 channels you could watch, and one of them just happened to have cartoons. And of course we're talking about Double Dragon, The Legend Begins, which is a, you know, American Saturday morning cartoon, poorly animated, crappy story, you know, is what it is, but I decided to pick up that VHS, you know, relive a little bit of the past. Then, with this next game, I think I can finally say I have a pretty much, you know, not counting different systems, but all the releases to make up for a complete Tomb Raider collection, and this is Tomb Raider: The Prophecy for the Game Boy Advance. So I now have all the Tomb Raider games. I haven't played all of them yet, but I've played a good chunk of them, and absolutely adore the Tomb Raider series, so that is pretty cool. And this one, I think, is a pretty decent one. And surprising, I did not have this already. X-Men for the Sega Genesis. Great side-scroller, beat-em-up game. Choose between different X-Men. It's a whole lot to love here. And then lastly, 4 things that I got from friends, trades, you know, at the Minnesota Retro Gamer Society meetup is Resident Evil Gaiden, which is really high up on my list of games that I was looking for. This is a Game Boy Color version of Resident Evil. They changed a lot of the gameplay mechanics to work on the underpowered handheld, but it's, you know, a decent game. And actually, I already have to make a correction. The last Tomb Raider game that I needed to get was Tomb Raider Lara Croft for the Game Boy Color, which I did get, which I will get to in a minute here. But almost forgot that at the end of the MNRGS meetup, as per usual, if it's hosted at a game store, anything that I might have, which is for trade bait, is usually kind of stuff that not a lot of people want, so why not sell it to the game shop and pick up some games? And that's what I did. I actually surprisingly got more than what I was expecting and picked up a few cool things. So first thing here is not so much a cool thing, but Castlevania 64 basically, which is kind of cool. I mean, it's not the worst, but it's dang close. But you gotta love Castlevania, and I didn't have any of the 64 ones, so I got that. And the next thing here is Taito Legends for the PlayStation 2, which is a collection of Taito classics from the arcade. Games like Space Invaders, Bubble Bobble, Operation Wolf, so on and so forth. I thought this one had elevator action returns, but it actually just has original elevator action, and I really, really want to play elevator action returns. So I will be hunting down the collection, but these collections are always really cool. And then lastly, from that day, I got Wild Arms 3. So at this point, I am still missing the original Wild Arms, but I do have Wild Arms 2, so that's pretty neat. Alright, so then moving back on to what I was saying about Tomb Raider, decided to stop at one of my favorite pawn shops. Nothing particularly special about this other than there doesn't seem to be a huge collector's market in the area, so it's kind of like the place where people go and trade in their games besides maybe GameStop. And a lot of times I find a lot of good deals, a lot of good selection to choose from. Pretty much if you're looking to start collecting for a system, this is actually a really good pawn shop to go to, because usually they will have a lot of the essentials there, not ridiculously priced all the time. Sometimes it definitely is, but if you dig, you can usually find like a copy, and then, oh, here's another copy that happens to be $2 or $5 less or something, so you just grab that one instead. But of course, decided to pick up a few things. Pretty stoked about a few of these. First one in particular was actually a crazy good deal. It was a Model 2 Sega Genesis with all the hookups, including a 32X for 20 bucks. So I got a 32X for 20 bucks. Always wanted a 32X. I'm halfway there to have my Tower of Power for the Sega Genesis, which is a bunch of goofy add-on attachments to make it super tall, which eventually I will get a picture, but I need a few more expansions to really make that what it is. And I've always thought it was pretty cool. Some of the games on there are decent at least, so yeah, 32X. Awesome. So then, like I said, this is actually the last Tomb Raider game that I needed. Well, it was those two, but now I have a complete Tomb Raider collection. Yeah. Then, you know, why the hell not? Picked up Terminator 2 for the Game Boy, so now I pretty much have Terminator 2 on all systems. I think I'm missing the Super Nintendo one, actually. And then a couple PlayStation 3 games. Dark Souls, never played Dark Souls, as is I've only played Dark Souls 3, but I now have most of the later gen From Software games besides Demon's Souls. And then we got Dead Rising 2 Off the Record, which is kind of a standalone expansion for Dead Rising 2. Really enjoyed the game, never actually played the expansion. I didn't even know there was a physical version of this actually, so that is pretty sweet. Lastly here from Games from the Pawn Shop, we got Brutal Legend, which never played, always heard great things. Can't really give you a reason why I didn't play it, but now I have it. Got a couple accessories, really cheap, and I know there's a lot of demand for these right now, so it's kind of a time to jump on them when you can find them for a good price. But I got the PlayStation Move with the remote or whatever, and then I also got a PlayStation 3 camera. So hey, cool stuff. Sucker for accessories as always. I actually have 2 of the Move sets, so that's neat. So now I just need a PlayStation VR and I'm off to the races. So I did mention that I had stopped at a garage sale, and kind of an unfortunate situation. Stopped in, did the quick run through, didn't see any video games. But of course, before you walk out, you always gotta ask, hey, you have any old video games? You know, rattle off the names. The lady was like, oh yeah, actually, you walked right by them. And pointed me to the back, and she's like, yeah, I got a Wii with 17 games. I was like, oh really? So I went back there to check it out, and I look in the box, and there's only 3 games and 2 loose disc games, and then the system. And I was like, oh hey, there's only 5 games here, where's the rest of the games? So apparently, within a few minutes of me getting there, somebody had went into the garage sale, because it was like right after she opened, and apparently stole 12 games from her. So that was unfortunate, but because of that, she's like, I'm definitely not going to ask what I wanted, so make an offer and it's yours. So got a pretty good deal on a Wii. I actually turned around and sold it to my dad, because he likes playing Tiger Woods golf, and my stepmom likes playing, you know, puzzle games and things like that, so win for them. And then from that, I got to keep the box, so I have a Wii box now. This is for the second version of the Wii that didn't have the controller ports or the memory card ports, but you know, Wii box, whatever. So then the rest of the stuff here was just kind of random one-off things that I've picked up as they've been released. First thing here I was super excited to finally receive is actually a Kickstarter that I backed quite a while ago. Wasn't really sure when it was going to come out. There was delay after delay with it shipping and manufacturing issues, but I finally received my Dark Souls, the board game, and this is actually a really freaking cool game. Hadn't had the chance to play through the full game. My friends and I played it for about 5 hours. We spent about half the time trying to figure out exactly what the rules meant, and that's one of the only major flaws with the game. Besides that, it comes with a bunch of really cool figures, really strategic, you know, teamwork's really a strong focus, and it's pretty much like a really good interpretation of Dark Souls in board game form. So really looking forward to playing this again. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. Hopefully when I can actually play through the full game, I can do kind of a review. I actually set up a camera and took some pictures and things like that while we were playing it, so that's something I would definitely like to do. And I haven't done any sort of board game reviews at this point. I've covered a lot of the other mediums, but I'd be interested if anybody else picked that up. Definitely let me know. Alright, we're into the home stretch here, and these are the pickups that I've gotten. New games, random releases, a lot of things I was really excited about, so I will just jump right into it. First one here is the Little Nightmares 6th edition, and this is a basically collector's edition of the game Little Nightmares. And basically what this game is kind of like the side-scrolling platformer. It's more of a 2.5D kind of puzzle platformer, not a lot of in-depth mechanics, mostly exploration, climbing, crawling, things like that. Think of games like Limbo, but horror. And if you haven't played this, I would definitely recommend checking out. Really short, but really enjoyable, and I think the price is pretty good for what it is. And I'm really looking forward to the DLC that's coming up this fall. So these are definitely some of the more random things that I've ever picked up for my collection. I was like, that's really cool. So basically a company called Gossip and Dunlap, which is a book publisher, apparently got together with a Yacht Club Games, mostly well known for Shovel Knight, and decided to put out a few random fun Shovel Knight related books. And of course, loving Shovel Knight, decided to pick them up. So first one here is Shovel Knight Digger's Diary, Activities You Will Dig. And basically this is just a hardcover activities book with things to do, basically. Like, Shovel Knight gets his energy back by eating chicken and apples. What would you want to eat while on an adventure? Draw all the goodies you would like below. It's more kid-oriented, but you know, I decided that it'd be pretty neat to add that to the collection. Shovel Knight isn't speechless. He's just waiting for you to write him a line. Make it something celebratory, like for chivalry. You know, just fun stuff. So the next one here is Shovel Knight Codes of Chivalry Handbook. And basically this is kind of like a lore book in many aspects. Talks about enemies, items, things like that. Gives him some stats and so on and so forth, which is a pretty neat one. Unfortunately, not hardcover. Then I know Corpse Flood Gaming was very stoked for me to pick this one up in particular, and that is Shovel Knight Mad Libs. And it's basically just a Mad Libs game, which is a lot of times it'll be like a paragraph or a story that you kind of fill in the blanks with whatever you want and kind of go from there. Usually it'll specify like nouns or adjectives or things like that, and then you can make funny stories. And Shovel Knight and humor works together hand in hand. And then, totally unnecessary but super awesome, Shovel Knight Guidebook. And this is actually your full-on strategy guide covering the levels, some of the secrets, things like that, including enemy information in the back. I think of all of them, this is probably the coolest one. But yeah, I really look forward to seeing if any other interesting expansions into books happen in the future. Shovel Knight's kind of its own thing in the realm of like some of the things that they're doing, so that, or they're really cashing in on the gullibility of the collectors, because I also have the Shovel Knight vinyl, Shovel Knight physical, Shovel Knight amiibo, so you know, whatever. I have fun with it, so that's really what counts. Next game here is PlayStation 4, and that is a clearance copy of Batman the Telltale series. Got it for super cheap at Walmart. Heard nothing but good things. Another kind of Telltale game, you know, kind of cinematic point-and-click adventure game, but dealing with Batman. But yeah, pretty stoked to check that out. Next one I was super stoked about. This is actually one of those games that when I heard about it, I was like, ooh, that looks really cool. And then I found out it was digital only. And of course, it was a huge bummer, so I was like, I'm not going to really bother checking it out then until maybe someday when it's super cheap and I have nothing else to play. But I know a lot of people don't like the company because of some of the hassle and the scalping, but I picked up a limited run release of Ostabreed, which is kind of a 2.5D shoot 'em up, you know, more like you're using mechs instead of ships. But when I originally saw this game, I couldn't think of anything other than Einhander, and that is a really cool PlayStation 1 shooter by Squaresoft that I thought was awesome. This looked like a really neat kind of evolution of that sort of game, and I was really stoked to pick that up. And of course, it comes with a limited run postcard and sticker thing like always. So then this next one is something that not many people know about. Actually, the only reason I heard about it was I actually follow the creator on Twitter, and he tweeted a random picture like many months ago saying that these were going to be available in limited quantities at some Walmarts in the US. And that's pretty much all I could find. Like, you can check their website, nothing. You can go on eBay, nothing. You can go on anywhere on the internet, nothing. Like, only information of this existing was from the creator's tweet. And apparently somebody must have found one of these Walmarts and bought a bunch of copy of these and put them up on eBay for retail price, which is absolutely amazing. I appreciate somebody not trying to turn around and make a buck. And what this is called Indie Stars Double Pack, including Mighty Switch Force and Shantae Risky's Revenge. And basically this is a disc-based PC version with the installs for the two games. I'm sure once you put the disc in, they install it to Steam, but I, of course, needed to add another physical Shantae thing to my collection. Couldn't pass up the opportunity, so I actually picked up a few of these because they're super cheap, and who knows, I can hook up a friend eventually someday. And, you know, goes without saying, had to get them. And still, as far as I know, it's just this one guy who actually still has copies on eBay, so if you're looking for one, go on eBay and buy them up, because at this point I've probably checked like 10 Walmarts and not a single one has ever had them. So this next one is actually kind of adding on to a previous pickup that I had. A company called I Am 8-Bit did a really cool Super Nintendo styled reproduction copy of Hyper Light Drifter, game that I've talked about before. I actually did a review of the game, really recommend checking it out. But they also put out, finally, a copy on PlayStation 4. Comes with pretty much all the same stuff that the Super Nintendo reproduction came with, a full reproduction manual, map, so on and so forth. Absolutely adore this game, so I had to pick that up. Next thing here is not video game. This next thing here is not a video game, but something that I was super excited to pick up. One of my friends actually did a tweet that he had picked this up. I didn't even know it was a thing. And funny enough, over the last like couple years, I've kind of been keeping my eye on these DVDs to see if I could find a really good deal, and things just haven't really worked out too well, so I've not picked these up. But apparently this was available and very affordable, so I picked up Darkstalkers, the complete OVA collection. Basically, this is a short 4-episode anime series of Darkstalkers. Not great by any means, really enjoyed the animation, but I've always loved Darkstalkers, always enjoyed the characters, and enjoyed the anime, so a lot of movies getting added to my collection this time. Now this next game, a lot of you might have not heard about it. If you did, awesome. I would like to know if anybody else picked this up, but that is another indie kind of limited release game, Strafe. There's a new company called Signature Reserve, and they've started doing small batch releases of what were previously digital only games. So far they've done Shadow Warrior, they're doing Shadow Warrior 2, and then Strafe. And this is kind of like a throwback retro-styled first-person shooter. Haven't heard a whole lot about the game itself, but I will definitely say the advertising for this game is absolutely hilarious and amazing. Definitely check it out. Go on YouTube, look up a trailer for this game because they are great. And then the last thing here is actually another DVD. I hadn't realized that these were available on DVD or Blu-ray at this point. I just kind of must have missed the news at the time, but last year I went to a premiere of kind of an independent film for a old internet series that I love, and that was the movie for Pure Ownage, and I decided to pick up the Blu-ray, so I now have the series on DVD and the movie on Blu-ray, so that is very awesome. As always, I would definitely recommend checking out Pure Ownage if you haven't seen it. Very, very funny. Make sure to watch the internet series first. There was also a TV series that only lasted a season. It's still pretty good, but not as good as the original internet series. And the movie was a fantastic end cap to Pure Ownage as a franchise. Who knows, maybe we'll see some more in the future. I'll just keep my fingers crossed. Alright, so hopefully that didn't go too long. I have a feeling that this is definitely a longer pickup video, so thanks if you stuck it out. Of course, as always, I would love to hear your thoughts on a lot of these games. Feel free to go type crazy. Type as much as you want, and I will definitely read and respond. So yeah, so I think that will about do it for this pickup video. I think this one probably ended up being a little bit longer than I expected. You know, I get a little carried away. I don't want to just show games and say, oh, yep, I got this, or this was a good deal, this was a good deal. I actually want to talk about them and talk about the memories and the experiences involved. Of course, I would love to hear your thoughts pretty much on any of these games. Have you played any of these? Do you have these games? Other things I should know about these? I don't know, whatever. Always enjoy the conversation that comes from this. Of course, again, thanks to all my friends for all the great deals. Very stoked to add all of this to my collection. Well, I think that will about do it then. So, of course, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I will talk to you next time on the Game Grinder.